The late 80s and early 90s were the heyday of the building game. One of those games like SimCity where you're given a big open map and just told, here you are, get to it, start making things. But the Famicom was missing out on those, and for two really good reasons. First, the control pad isn't the best interface method for interacting with a bunch of menus and plopping down large blocks. Second, and far more importantly, it's a console designed in 1983, and that meant an absolutely minuscule 2 kilobytes of RAM, because they could directly address the program and graphics off the ROM on the cartridges. Building games are defined by how players can build what they want where they want, and even with compression techniques, that is fairly RAM intensive. What this means is that A Ressha no Ikou is the only building game on the Famicom. How did A列車で行こうdeal with that tiny amount of RAM? Well, they added 2 8K RAM chips to the cartridge. That was still tiny for 1991, but it was still enough space for this game. A列車で行こうwas actually one of the very first building games. The original version appeared on Japanese computers in 1985, and the title is a reference to the Cole Porter song. The A-Train series is fairly long-running, too, with the most recent entry as of this recording coming out in 2021. Your goal in the Famicom version of A列車で行こうis to make your company into a success, but you only have 1 year in which to do it. The clock never stops in the game, though you can set the speed to slow, normal, or fast when you start. Now you might think that you want it to go quicker since you'll be waiting around a lot, but there's a major problem with A列車で行こう. One that kills the game dead. The interface is pretty much the worst thing that I have ever played. It's something that wouldn't really be acceptable back in the early days of computers, and on the Famicom it's virtually unplayable. You can hit select to bring up this list of all the commands, and you might notice that they all involve multiple button presses. By the way, you can only bring up this help menu during daytime hours. And you're going to be fumbling with the interface so much, you need as much time as possible to be able to get through things. So let's start with the basics. Rather than having a cursor or some kind of God view interface, you're controlling the A-Train. That's the circle with the A in it. There are 2 different modes for the A-Train, Insert and Elite. By default, it's in Insert mode. Insert mode is how you lay down track, and during daylight hours, but not night, if you move the A-Train onto a blank square, then it builds a section of track there. Track costs material, and you start out with 250 tons of it. Every section of track out in the open costs 10, regardless of how complicated the layout is. You can get more material by picking it up from a train station where it's been dropped off. Now the thing about building track is you can't just go in any direction. Trains do not make 90-degree turns. So if you're traveling with a westbound track, you have to curve off to the southwest or northwest in order to turn. And for reasons I'll get into in a little bit, track can only fork once in a section. You can't have 3 tracks come together. Now since you have to curve off, you might think that you have to press in a diagonal direction to do this. Oh no, that would be far too simple. Instead, you hold down the A button and push in a direction, and that makes you turn right 45 degrees from the direction that you pushed. So A and up goes northeast, A and right goes southeast, A and down goes southwest, and A and left go northwest. Doesn't that make perfect sense? The other significant thing that you can build are train stations. This is the heart of your routing, and people will congregate there to get picked up by passenger trains, and cargo will get dropped off there. The stations are those long white buildings. You start with one, but because of its inconvenient location, you'll probably only use it to drop off track material. They have to be built adjacent to 3 straight track pieces that are running east-west or north-south. You build one by holding down A and pressing start. They don't cost you any of your real material, but they do cost you some of your funds. And the funds are only visible when you press start to bring up your company status. If you find that you've built a station in the wrong place, or if you want to get rid of that starting station, you can hold down A and press select when you're next to the station. To enter delete mode to get rid of tracks, you hold down A, B, and press select. From that, the A train acts as an eraser, but it doesn't delete junctions unless you delete all of the track around it. While I was playing A Ressha no Ikou, I discovered a game-breaking bug, where it's possible to delete one of the tracks into your starting station, and since you're not allowed to build there or delete that station, you become permanently trapped. Hope you saved the game recently if you do that. There are 3 maps in A列車 no Ikou, and all of them are multi-screen affairs, but they only scroll to the north. Once you've started expanding that direction, you can hold down A, B, and up to move your view of the map up 1/2 of a screen. And of course, A, B, and down does the exact opposite. Holding down A, B, and pressing left pauses the game for some reason, but holding down A, B, and pressing right does nothing. Now all of that talk was only the daytime interface. You build during the day and you route your trains at night. At the bottom right of the map is your train depot. You have 6 trains besides the A train when you start. You have 4 passenger trains and 2 freight trains available to you. And the freight train has the material yard next to it, where it can pick up what an industry needs and drop it off, which means for you, track building material. At night, you can press select to enter signal mode. Here, pressing left and right will rotate through all of the signals on your system. There's one at every junction and one at every station. At junctions, you can assign every train to branch off or go straight, and at stations, you can assign it to wait at the station until a certain time. Trains always go in the direction that they're moving until they bump into the end of the line. You better hope you've put a line terminus there, or the train will crash. When you're building track, this is done automatically, but if you've been deleting things, then it's possible to leave something open-ended. Trains can also collide with each other. When this happens, it leaves a mess on the track that the A train has to clean up. And you'll have to buy an expensive replacement if you want to use that train again. The replacement appears in the depot. Trains move continuously at night, even the A train. If you want to stop the A train's movement at night, you have to press the B button. Trains automatically perform a pickup and drop-off when they pull into a station, and that means that having one straight track is a bad idea. Your cargo train, for example, will drop off at a station, pull out to hit the end of the line, turn around and pick up the cargo it just dropped off. What you really need to do for your train routes is work in loops. That will let the trains move smoothly through everything. Train stations encourage growth, which is how you improve your company. Building a train station means that more houses will be built near that train station, and then that feeds into more passengers on your line, and more money back to you. There are 3 ways to get a game over in A列車で行こう. The first and easiest is to have the A train crash into something. That's an immediate game over. And yes, that does mean once you have a larger system, you're going to have to dodge your moving trains to get around to things. I'd recommend building small spurs that you route all the trains off of, so that you have a place to park the A train while you deal with stuff. The second way to get a game over is to run out of money. This is actually kind of difficult in this game, but if you went around everywhere building things up and tearing it down again, I guess it could happen. And the final way to get a game over is after 365 days. If you haven't fulfilled the scenario requirements, then it's game over. The status screen actually has a percentage tracker to show you how close you are to that goal. While A列車で行こうis still a popular series in Japan, the Famicom version is effectively forgotten. And I mean forgotten to the point where the one person I found who mentioned anything about it just said that they were surprised to discover that the port existed. And I get that. This is a game that arrived late to the party, and was actively difficult to play. There's a framework here for a really decent game, and I think you can see that in the later A Ressha games. There isn't really a need to go back to this one.